You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, mother... What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Garland will go down low on the right block. Mobley takes it into the lane, but he leaves his left hand off the front of the rim. Siakam rebounds, sidesteps Mobley, drives it to the forecourt, takes it the length of the floor and lays it off the glass.
Beautiful finish.
Indiana 5, Cleveland 4. Nembhard spins into the lane, cut off on the foul line by Mitchell. He retreats, giving the ball to Halliburton. Now back to Nembhard. Wade has him now. Cross court to Halliburton. He just hit a three, and this time he hits another one.
Beautiful job. Pascal Siakam does a terrific job with the flare screen, freeing up Halliburton, and he starts to get hot here in the second quarter.
Pacers trailing by 4. Nembhard at the top of the circle. 80 seconds left in the second quarter. Halliburton from the logo hit a three.
Talk about a heat check. Goodness gracious, he's heating up here in the second quarter.
He's got 5 3-point field goals in this quarter. Cleveland's lead is all but evaporated through 2 in Game 5. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers 56, the Indiana Pacers 52. Halliburton has it again. Up the right sideline. He'll fire it cross court into the near corner. Siakam backing in, using his size on Garland. He feeds it into the lane. It's slapped away. It's loose on the near side. Scooped up. Siakam grabs it, turns and hits a three right in front of his own bench. Timeout for Cleveland. The Pacers are in front by 1. 7:04 left in the third quarter. 65-64 for the Pacers. 75-68. Benedict Mathurin out there for the first time in this quarter for Indiana. He gives it to Halliburton. Back to Mathurin into the lane. Toppin finds the open man. Left to right. The pass to the right block and a two-hand slam for Bryant. 2:05 left in the third. Cleveland reeling. They're down by 9. Garland on the move, left edge of the arc, continues to the wing. He'll float one off the glass. That's rebounded by Toppin. Pacers running 4 on 3. Toppin's going to take it himself, hops to the hoop, lays it in and draws the foul. They're within 1. 4:59 to play in the fourth. Halliburton across the timeline. Mitchell is on it. Halliburton driving with the left hand, feeds the top. Siakam goes to work, kick out right edge, and Neesmith missed a three. Turner with the offensive rebound. Back outside, Halliburton with it. Halliburton got it to Nembhard. He's open, and he hit a three from the left edge.
Timely offensive rebound by Miles Turner, and big basket by Nembhard.
Mobley missed the foul shot. Halliburton rebounds. 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Indiana leading 111-105. Cavaliers trapping, trying to force a turnover. Now it's in Halliburton's hands over on the far side with half a minute to go. Halliburton against Mitchell. Hunter shows a trap. Halliburton gets rid of it. Far corner. Turner. Dagger. A three out of the corner, and all of a sudden, a switch has been thrown. This place is like a library. Final score 114-105.
Pacer broadcast last night in 5. They move on to their back-to-back now Eastern Conference Finals appearances. Mark Boyle, Eddie Gill. You heard it right here on The Fan. That's exactly what I wanted to see this group do. There, in this case, are no excuses. It was all hands on deck for the Cavaliers. They led by 19. So much of what you witnessed last night is a thumbnail sketch of what this Pacer team is and has been about. You get down 19. Think about this for a moment. Remember how bad offensively Cleveland was in game number 4 on Sunday night. In the second quarter, they scored 16 points. Remember how bad that was? Meanwhile, getting blitzed by 42 in the second quarter Sunday night by the Pacers. So, in quarter number 1 last night, the Pacers score 3 more than that 16-point effort the Cavs put up in the second quarter back on Sunday night. 3 more. That is how dismal the first quarter was offensively. Now, the Cavaliers put up 31, but the point you're making here is this team is just capable of climbing out of anything. And a lot of what we witnessed, as I mentioned last night, was things you know this team to be. As resilient as anybody. And as I brought up the past couple of days, and Patrick Beverley talked about in that podcast, and I revisited that earlier in the week, they wear you out. That is really a form of physicality that's not often talked about. When you bring up the term physicality in basketball, normally, especially with the NBA, you think of the 1990s. You're thinking of Charles Oakley, Charles Smith, Anthony Mason. You're thinking of the 80s. With Maurice Lucas, Rick Mahorn. You think of the Pacers having their interior muscle with Dale Davis and Antonio Davis. You think about all that. That is not what you get with the Pacers. What you get is a style, a brand of basketball that, A, is incredibly appealing to everybody. And this is a tough-ass mixture, too. It's tough to be appealing to everybody, especially in this state, because, as I've mentioned before, you pop out of the womb thinking about and being taught the team concept in basketball. That's why many of the older generation constantly tell me, I can't watch the NBA because it's not team basketball. Well, now you got to look in the mirror because you sound like a huge jackass. There is nothing more team conceptual in basketball than what this Pacer team does every single night. So they give you an incredible mixture. And honestly, I don't know if we truly understand how difficult this is to do. Because you have to have just one hell of a coaching staff. And I'm not just talking about Rick. I talk about it all the time. I think their staff is incredible. And you have to have a general manager. You have to have a team president picking all the right players. Yeah, Kristen Airy and I were talking after the game last night. Can you imagine? Last week at this time, we were talking about how Kevin Pritchard, and a tip of the cap to Chad Buchanan as well. I want to get Chad Buchanan on, but they're at the Chicago Combine right now, like I thought they might be. We will get him on. But Kevin Pritchard and the work that the Pacers did this past year was not in the top 12 of Executive of the Year. Think about that for a moment. Not in the top 12. First of all, you think about this market in general. Like Chad Buchanan goes on with Jim Rome last week. And one of the things Chad Buchanan said to Jim Rome was something he has brought up here, but he doesn't have to bring that up here because we love basketball and we kind of understand the situation going on with the Pacers. He brought it to Jim Rome. There's no beach. There's no mountains. The weather kind of stinks in January, but if you love basketball at your core, you would love to be a part of this team. By God, there is nothing more accurate than that statement. We don't have to hear it because we know it. We don't have to hear it because we're here. But I want to get back to the delicate dynamic of putting together a team in this era of the NBA. Look at Giannis right. Giannis right now is going to find another star to play alongside of. I mean, the conclusion that wasn't drawn is that the team that they won the title with in Milwaukee was what? It was well balanced with his stardom. The problem you have right now is it's not well balanced. In fact, it has probably the jerkiest roster of all time outside of a couple of players, and one of them is injured until the end of next year. Why has that thought never crossed any other team or their executive minds? And why does it work here? And nobody else has tried it. I am so curious because we know this to be true in any level of sports. Man, it's all copycat stuff out there. All of it. And I kind of wonder if there's anybody out there, and I'm assuming they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? So that is the superstar. He's probably going to be the MVP. but he is surrounded by just a absolute laundry list of talent. So Sam Presti had this idea without question. But the Pacers perform it unlike anybody else does, and really anybody else has. And as I mentioned, it's a delicate dynamic because you not only have to have the right people making the decisions, and some of the big decisions coming off of that bench is playing time, is rotational. And you saw it last night. Halliburton gets 2 fouls early. He goes to the bench, and they had to adjust the rotation. You get the same amount of clock for everybody, but the rotation is adjusted. You know, Miles gets a couple of fouls. Thomas Bryant comes in. Thomas Bryant probably gave them his best minutes of the postseason. It really is. It is and everybody does something to push forward. Brad Stevens always said, and I've brought this up before, that everybody has to be pushing in the same direction. I mean, everybody from top, even if you're unrelated to the basketball program, but maybe you're just a facilities manager at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Everybody within the program or the friends of the program has to be pushing in the same direction. That's exactly what you have right here. You know how damn hard that is to do in the NBA? Oh, yeah, by the way, you got to deal with egos most of the time. I talk about all the time while this is going to go down as one of my favorite, if not my favorite all-time teams around here. That is chief among the reasons why. That is yet another reason why this works. That's another reason why I wanted to see this run back. Remember all the bull crap I got last summer about wanting to run this back? Well, you can't run it back. They're not good enough. They showed they're not good enough by being swept by the Celtics. You got to do something different. You got to be like everybody else's ass out there and go out and get the next superstar or somebody with name recognition. I'm going to tell you what, that doesn't work here because everybody says they want to play at this pace, but not everybody is built for it. And we're talking about the world's greatest athletes playing this game, and not everybody is built for it. Did you happen to see, more so than big toes or ankles or nagging injuries that Cleveland evidently was dealing with and still dealing with or whatever? More so than that, did you happen to see when the Pacers made that second quarter run, and so much of that was due to the shot-making ability of Tyrese Halliburton? Did you see, and really, it was probably more pronounced in the third quarter, when they were, missed 17 consecutive attempts from the field, the Cavaliers? There was a timeout called. They went to the bench, and they were all mouth-breathing, all of them, and in particular, Donovan Mitchell. They were just gasping for air. Not everybody can do this. And that's why it is so important to have those that are putting together this roster. You have to pick the right people for the roster because not everybody's going to be able to perform at this level and do their job and fit in. It's amazing what they have done. I talk about coaching and what you have to do just beyond the X's and the O's. It is managing these minutes rotationally so you're good to go down the stretch and these other teams are mouth-breathing. Especially a Cleveland team. What did they play last night? They go, because they didn't have Merrill because of an injury or an illness or whatever. Last night, they went 9 deep, I think. And then, by the way, too, one of their sparks in the second half was Ty Jerome. And at the moment, and we'll talk to Spiro Ditas, who had the call on TNT coming up at the 5 o'clock hour, it was being made about the spark. He got no PT. The rotation had changed for Kenny Atkinson. And then all of a sudden in the second half, Kenny goes, okay, we can't hit a damn thing right now. Sub him in. And he knocked down a couple of threes. The problem for Cleveland is he knocked down a couple of threes and then gave up like 12 points defensively on his own because the Pacers are so good offensively in what they do, not just pushing the basketball. This is not just LMU in 1989 pushing the basketball down your throat after absolutely everything. It is very calculated. What did they do? They found that matchup. Every single time down the floor, did you notice during the moments in which Jerome was on the floor that whomever he was guarding to start, whomever he got switched to in a ball screen, they all went at him because he can't guard you guys. There is a level of skill in basketball understanding for that, too. And by the way, thinking about it in the moment, because when you're tired, let's say you're playing at this pace, when you're tired, it's not just your body that gives out. It's not your legs and your arms and just you're breathing heavy. Man, your mind goes haywire too. All of a sudden, you're not thinking about the things you should be thinking about. You're thinking about, man, I got to have a break. I'm tired, or I might puke in front of everybody right here. That is such a significant advantage for the Pacers. And Rick Carlisle said this morning with the guys on the morning show that that isn't an advantage for them. That's what they work at. I mean, this thing is not for everybody. And I have a great deal of admiration for it. But, man, when it works, and most of the time it will, I think Game 3 on Friday night, maybe that was an anomaly. Maybe they were a little bit too full of themselves. Obviously, the lack of shot-making ability, when you're not making and the other team is, then that is the biggest role that's played here. And then you dig yourself a hole you can't dig out of. And the other team is feeling stronger. Like the injuries go away. I've said this before. The injury goes away. You're tired. All of a sudden, you got better wind. You know, you're running a little bit more downhill than uphill when things aren't going right at a pace like that. But it is an amazing brand of basketball that the Pacers put together. And it is not for everybody, but it is for these guys. You just simply don't see it. And the other spot in which it's perfect is perfect for you. You guys can get down with this because that's what you're told. The first time you pick up a basketball and you're coached in basketball, you're told about the team concept. That's exactly how these guys play. Tyrese Halliburton said it after the game last night. You know, we don't have these superstars. You know, we all have roles. We all play together. Pascal Siakam, this is egoless basketball. That is not at all what normally you would think about when you think about the NBA. It's trying to get along. It's trying to manage egos. How many times do you have to hear about managing egos? Have you ever heard that once here? Well, we got to manage some egos. Not one time do you have to worry about that here. I'll be honest. I told you yesterday that I wanted to see them close in Game 5 in Cleveland because you win 3 games on the road against a team that won 64 regular season games. The 1 seed in the East. And there are no more excuses. And there are no more, well, you couldn't do it in Cleveland. They had all their guys back, but you had to go back home and do it because you got a whistle and all that. I mean, really, they didn't get anything. There was nothing given. They took it last night, much like they did in game number 1. I said that I wanted to see a mirror image, hopefully, of game number 1, or at least a lot of the similar aspects of game number 1. And outside of the red-hot shooting that they had in game number 1, they still shot it at a 50% clip. 43% from distance. But even beyond that, you know, there were a lot of aspects in game number 1 that held true in game number 5. And I wanted to see them go out in that fashion. And did you guys notice after the game? Did you notice this morning? And this is not something that is absolutely necessary. But I think it's incredibly funny. It's when you have those that are paid to know all this stuff, to study all this stuff, the former players that have been a part of the game. And I bring up Kendrick Perkins all the time, incredibly clueless about the Pacers. Until last night's wake-up call. And, oh, by the way, this thing can catch on because you just simply put, you don't see it. This is not the little engine that could. This is not the small market versus the Knicks or maybe against the Celtics or beating the bigger market teams. This is as well-oiled a team concept machine as you're going to find anywhere. And even when you go through a first quarter that was not good, 19 points. They scored 19 points in the fourth quarter. They were trailing by 19 at one point in that game. And still dug out of it. It was down to 4 at the half. And then once they got into the third quarter, I thought Cleveland needed about 19 half times to get where they needed to be as far as their win. The entire series. And I'm not going to suggest that guys aren't dinged up at injury. I'll give you a great example last night. And he didn't say anything. I don't know this, But I watched Miles play, and everybody was happy about the track down block of Mitchell and the offensive rebound kick out, and then the game-ending dagger three, as Mark Boyle described it. But what I saw was a guy that I thought that he was hampered by something last night. But you don't hear it. Nobody talked about it. Nobody brought it up. And you know what? Guys picked him up. Others picked him up. Halliburton had the shot-making ability, especially when they needed it with those 3 straight threes. Siakam showed up big, as an all-star would. Andrew Nembhard was that stinking bulldog that is necessary. And in a game where, frankly, he didn't shoot it well, 1 of 7 from distance. Did you see that Aaron Nesmith had 13 boards? Aaron Nesmith played some, and I'm saying the defense is what's going to wear you out. And you look at some of the numbers from the Cavaliers where they needed it. Darius Garland, big toe or not, had an absolutely dreadful series. He was awful. And just beyond, for example, a 4 of 16 and 0 of 6 last night, he was awful because he can't guard you either. And then they have to go to the bench, and you bring in Ty Jerome, and he can't guard anybody. Like, I thought that they were doing the right thing to sit him. But they were afraid to play him, and then I thought Kenny Atkinson kind of was forced into playing him because they simply could not find anybody to shoot it. Max Strus sent out a text before the game, according to TNT, that said, hey, if you don't believe in what we can do later on tonight, then stay at home. Well, he probably should have stayed at home. He was 0 of 9. So much of this has to do with just how well-oiled a machine this Pacer team is on both ends. And when the offense clicks, it makes the defense better. When the offense clicks, it wears the other team out. And that is also a heavy form of physicality. It's not like what you see in 1994 with the Knicks or what the league was back in the 1980s. Not that form of bad boys, Mahorn, lame beer physicality. But these guys will wear you out, and this program's not for everybody. But I will tell you this. You don't think a lot of guys wouldn't want to come here and play with this group? If you're Steve Simon, why would you not want to keep this together? Yeah, that's another point as well that was brought up to me last night. You know, Alex Golden was on the show yesterday, had the podcast Setting the Pace. He asked a question like that. I'm just going to tell you right now, unless circumstances change in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we're incredibly disappointed and thinking about something new, I have no idea how you don't try your damnedest to bring this back, because you have an open window right now, a championship open window. Milwaukee's going to go through a transitional period. They have a significant injury. Boston's going to go through a transitional period. They have a significant injury. This is your moment. If you don't take advantage, I am going to rail on them every day of my life if they don't take advantage of this moment, even beyond the fact that you guys have waited on it forever and have been loyal to it. As enjoyable of a team that I have ever had the pleasure and enjoyed to watch is this Pacer team. And I've been around a lot of stuff, and I love the 90s, and I love the Pacers from the 90s, and that whole evolution, all of it. The 2000 team, but these guys are fun as hell to watch, and they really do. They touch every base that is the reason why they're becoming so endearing, not just to people around here that already have known that, but now I think that recognition is going nationally, especially after last night. We can discuss that at 239-1070. Email address, jmv1075thefan.com. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. You get the Knicks and the Celtics. Closeout opportunity for the Knicks later on tonight. So either way, this is going to be Monday or Wednesday of next week. You're going to get a road game somewhere on Carb Day night, which sounds weird. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. And then you're going to get Pacers and Racers, which we all love, on race day. Now, you've got practice going on at IMS. We got a lot more loaded up and ready to go for you. I mentioned Spiro Ditas on the call for TNT last night. He's going to join us a little bit later on. I think Bowen's going to drop in here as well. We're going to go a betting angle a little bit later, too. And Jeremiah Johnson, the Pacers TV. It is going to be blue and gold heavy, as it should be on this Wednesday. So don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
V.
If somebody gets in your face and calls you a I want you to be nice.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The Knicks are just rolling. Nobody can stop Jalen Brunson. You know, they just rolling. It's Nickville. You know, and the garden is cracking. Everybody in the house, and it's a crowd of just not only celebrities but passionate Knicks fans.
Do you think the Pacers are going to get intimidated going into the Garden?
100%. Indy versus New York, it ain't. Come on, man. They're not used to that.
That's a rivalry.
My God, Keyshawn Johnson is such a huge dumbass. Now, you already knew that, right? What show was that, James, by the way? It's one that I sure as hell would never think about watching. And a lot of you have pointed out that clip. A couple of things. Keyshawn Johnson is probably more famous than even playing in the NFL. He's more famous. Remember the Monday night game, and the quote was, "That's how he gets his catches." What he said about Marvin Harrison. Remember how big of a jackass he looked like? So really, you can't really overtake that level of jackassery. But what that tells you, what show is that again, James?
That is Speak.
Speak. Yeah, it should be Shut Up, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I will give him this. Jalen Brunson is an absolute dog. No question about it. He's an end-of-game dog. The only thing that drives me nuts about Brunson is the constant head bobbing. That's just a part of his repertoire now. He's a foul baiter, and his head's bobbing to try to get a whistle all the time. But that doesn't mean I dislike him. I think he is an absolute fantastic player. But the reason why I point that out is because so many of you said, hey, did you hear what Keyshawn Johnson says? And normally I didn't. But really, even with the injuries last year, all you have to do is go back to Game 7 in the Garden. And the Pacers win by 20-plus and probably should have won by 30-plus. And I brought this up yesterday. Remember how embarrassing ESPN was? Stephen A. Smith. And again, more embarrassing than usual, which is saying a lot. You have to go a long way to be more embarrassing than you normally are on a daily basis, most afternoons, most mornings. But it was a pregame show of nothing but cheerleading. I will say this, Pacers TV doesn't do like that level of it. This was a national sports network before a Game 7 a year ago. And the Pacers went in and punked them. But the reason why I bring it up is no matter what he says, he can't be worse than that Monday night mic'd up questioning how Marvin Harrison gets his catches. So there's a history there of opening one's mouth and sounding incredibly stupid, which he clearly has mastered. And it holds true because, I mean, hell, that was years ago, right? 2-3 decades. So, well done. But I will also tell you, if you actually watch that crap, you know, that's what you're going to get. Completely uneducated. Well, things would be cracking. Things would be cracking in the Garden. I mean, all right. Things are cracking in the Garden. Great. And believe me, the Knicks, if that's going to be the Eastern Conference Finals competition, that is going to be incredibly difficult. I bring up Brunson, but you got two new faces. Yeah, I'm not incredibly impressed with Mikal Bridges, but the thing that concerns me, like, this is going to be the ultimate test if this is the case for Miles. Because Karl Anthony Towns can go inside and outside. If you remember a year ago, Isaiah Hartenstein had about a 5-foot floater, and that was it. And then he got brought away from the basket, and that was tough on him at times. So this is going to be, I think, you know, maybe outside of, at times, a healthy Anthony Davis, this is going to be as tough, or a Jokic, obviously, as tough a matchup as Miles is going to see with Karl Anthony Towns. You know, if that's the Knicks that you're going to see in the Eastern Conference Finals, if I'm a Pacer fan, I kind of cross my fingers and hope that Karl Anthony Towns thinks that he's a three-point shooter all the time. You don't want him wallowing down in the low post. It is a different team. It is a better team, but it is still susceptible to the one major factor that the Pacers possess, and that is they have a short bench, and Tom Thibodeau doesn't like to go to it often and not for extended periods of time, and you can run some guys a mess. And again, as Patrick Beverley pointed out, as I pointed out, there's a common theme when these guys come up with injuries playing the Pacers. And it's not about the Pacers' physicality from a strength angle. It is about their pace of play, and you break down because of that. But Knicks have to win one more to make that a reality. They're in Boston coming up later on tonight. In fact, two teams trying to stay alive. Celtics in the East hosting the Knicks. That is a game number 5. And the Warriors trying to maintain a little bit of life against the Timberwolves coming up in game number 5 in Minneapolis at 9:30. Coming up later on tonight. All right, Kevin Bowen, top of the hour. And we'll do a little covers betting segment coming up at 4:30. And we got for you in the 5 o'clock hour. Spiro Ditas is going to join us as well. And Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, all on the way. Josh is at 239-1070 right now. Hello, Josh. How are you?
Good afternoon, JMV.
Good afternoon, Josh.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with Rick Carlisle's contract, and I'm wondering how long we have them and if we shouldn't be already doing something to secure him until he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Oh, his contract. If memory says, you had to ask me. I'm glad you asked me that because I'm not ready for it. Well, I will tell you this.
Pretty important.
Yeah, he I believe it goes beyond next year, past 20. Yeah, I think it's beyond 20. I believe it's past 2025. But here's the thing. He's not going anywhere with this group. He's not going to go anywhere. So, like, if you're suggesting, Josh, you're going to be worried about it, I wouldn't be worried about anything like that. Nothing.
Well, I'm worried about losing the best coach in the NBA, that's for sure, because he is that. And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
The difference we're going to see with Big Cat there. Do you think it's going to make that big of a difference? What are we going to do about that? Because Turner's not going to be able to guard him down low. It's not his strong suit. How are we going to deal with that?
Well, that's a hell of a question. I don't know. I still think it's going to be up to Miles. That's why I mentioned I think this is going to be the biggest challenge that we're going to see this season for Miles, if that is the operation with the Knicks that we see in the Eastern Conference Finals. Because there's no doubt. I mean, no, hey Josh, that's the point I was going to make. You can make his ass work too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not like he gets down with playing a lot of defense himself either. And he gets tired, and they have a short bench. So I just think it's kind of that wearing out thing. And then, as I mentioned before you came on, I hope that you find him in a series in which he falls in love with a three-point look.
I agree 100%. I don't think any team in the NBA can deal with our bench. We are 8 deep. We might not have any Batmans, but we got plenty of Robins.
No,
so we'll just keep throwing them at you.
Josh, thank you very much for the call, man. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, Alex Golden actually sent that out when he asked the question of Steve Simon. Here's the full quote from the podcast on the possibility of going into the tax. I'm going to tell you what. I've been disappointed in my life covering sports at times. It's just the way that it is. But if they don't grab the bull by the balls, Dean Warmer, right now, moving forward with the landscape in the East, I'm not just talking about right now in this moment. I mean, sure as hell you take advantage of that. But I'm talking about next year as well. I mean, this is a window. These guys, as we've talked about, are legit. And these major teams in the East, I didn't even bring up the Celtics going through an ownership transition. There was talk that they were going to shed payroll anyway. So what are they going to do with that team that's going to be missing their star player basically for all of next year? You know, I documented Milwaukee's situation. Now, what's Philadelphia going to be doing? Is you going to see like Joel Embiid reincarnated like me? You going to see that in the Fountain of Youth? This is the moment you take advantage of it. Honestly, this is why you have those that you believe in making all those decisions on those that you bring in that make all the right decisions on the court, that play as a team. And a team that is respected and enjoyed and loved by its fan base beyond its results. It is a fantastic group, and it is such a rarity to get this. And there's no egos being checked at the door, none of that jackassery. So it would be the absolute most disappointed I would ever be if they didn't go hard at it and go hard at it for the foreseeable future. That's my expectation. And again, I'm using somebody else's money here. They have plenty of it. But that is my thought. You look around the Eastern Conference landscape and you tell me if there's a better time to try to take advantage of it. This is it. James says, take a break. I will if you're on hold. I think Cameron's on there. We'll get to Cameron coming up on the other side, too. Kevin Bowen's going to join us at the top of the hour. They talked to Rick Carlisle this morning, and the Pacers moving on to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. A year ago, you could say, well, it was because of injury and circumstances and good fortune. This team is good, and it is built unlike anybody else with a team orientation that is an absolute rarity. If not one of one, I think maybe this team's kind of like the JMV takeover on Saturday night. Nationwide, it's one of one. Nobody else does it. Nobody else works at it that way. True story. Come back with your calls. Kevin Bowen, top of the hour. Spiro Ditas on the call. TNT last night, too. And JJ and more coming up on this show. Sit tight. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
This year it's going to be different. This year we're going to grab the bull by the balls and kick those punks off campus.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, that's the quote for Steve Simon right there from Dean Vernon Wormer of Animal House, 1978. He's going to grab the bull by the balls. This is your time. This is your window. Go to work. Make sure you do everything you can, because I think we all know this, and it may even be more magnified now with the Colts, and they're stumbling. And I don't want to bring them into the equation because it always turns out to be negative. I don't really want that, but I'm going to give you an example of if you miss your window. And it's funny because so many dorks constantly came at me 2 years ago, actually less than that with the Siakam trade, and talked about timelines not matching. I still want to vomit when I hear that. Well, I don't know if their timelines match. Well, here's what does. Their talent, jackass. That's what matches. Their timeline. Hey, my timeline doesn't match with Liz Hurley, but damn, let me tell you that. Seriously. Timelines, all. See, that's the other thing, too. We have completely crushed out all notable nerdisms, and I think that's beautiful. All of it. Thank you. But no, to answer the question, now is the time. I mean, at this moment, next year, you could easily see what's going on around you in the Eastern Conference. I know out west, it's a different animal. OKC's loaded up. Hell, they could have somebody injured and go by. You'll say this. If you watch Denver and OKC, they barely survived Jokic last night. JMV, I totally agree. There's any way FanDuel can have a pre- and post-game show because you like yeah. There is not. I don't mind the TNT stuff at all, post-game show-wise. It's just when people that haven't watched, you just make asinine statements. And it's not even so much on Keyshawn Johnson for what he said on whatever the show was called, Speak, because you automatically know when you go, well, here's what Keyshawn Johnson said. It's probably going to be very stupid. Here's what he said. Everything's going to be cracking in Madison Square Garden. Yeah, I doubt if they're going to be intimidated by anything. Impressive win last night. Even going through a 19-point dismal offensive first quarter, you're able to get up off the mat. Sean Collinsworth says this has to be the T-shirt design at the field house on Pacers and Racers. That is a checkered flag. I would think that is what they're going to do coming up for that game number 3 on race day Sunday evening. Cameron, before the top of the hour, jumps in here at 239-1070. Hello, Cameron.
Hey, John. Feeling good. Just wanted to say there's a few things that I think Pacers fans were worrisome about the last year or two, and I was definitely one of them. And it was obviously closing out games, taking games serious, obviously in the regular season, some of those losses against Charlotte, yada, yada, yada. And the one thing we've seen, the Pacers are, 8-2 in the playoffs this year, and they might not come out and say it, but I'll say it. They have to feel, just like we do, for them to close out these games and, on the road and to come back in some of these games that they were down, that has to be a nightmare for other teams, because this is the one thing that, kind of I feel like stopped us from surprisingly going to the finals last year. And now it just seems like, they're all still super young. Siakam's the vet, Miles has been on the team for a while, but now I feel like they've figured out a little bit and got their confidence of closing out games. And that was one of my number one priorities I wanted to see them do.
Here's something, Cam, too, that is striking. Even with potentially, because of bringing back Miles and wanting to make sure this team relatively stays the same, that you're going to go into a luxury tax threshold, which the Pacers historically have never done. That's what I brought up a little bit earlier, is that you have Andrew Nembhard and you have Aaron Neesmith on incredible NBA-level contracts for what they do to produce and what they mean to this team. Incredible deals. That's something you also consider. There's a lot of savviness that has gone on here. But, it's going to be up to ownership to make sure you take advantage of what clearly is a championship open window right now for this group. So it's even past this year to me. What else you got?
For sure. And I was going to say, going off of, like with Nemhard and, our guys on our bench, the last time I checked, the Knicks, they made a few splashes. They got Cat, they got Bridges. But last time I checked, they've never addressed their bench. They still run 6 guys. If Boston makes it out, they still run 5, 6 guys. And it's obviously to the Pacers' advantage. So, I mean, I've said it before, Giannis goes off, Mitchell goes off, and we know those guys are going to get the ball, just like Brunson's probably going to get the ball out. But how do you prepare for a team like the Pacers when they have 5 guys on the court, and you have Halliburton, you don't know who's going to score the ball?
Well, hey, Cam, thank you for the call, too. And to back up what you said, against the Celtics in game number 4, back on Monday night, James, they played 9 guys, but 2 guys played 5 minutes, Payne and Achua. Played 5 minutes combined. Mitchell Robinson, who consistently whiffs on free throws, played 25 minutes, and Miles McBride 20. They play nobody. That is problematic for them, even with the talent they have in that starting lineup. We'll get to that coming up here at the top of the hour. Bowen is here. Little angle from our friends from Covers at the bottom of the hour. JJ after 5. Spiro Ditas of TNT was on the call last night. He's here too. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Swanson, full steam ahead. Over there. I want to go over there. Move over, Swanson. I'm driving.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Mobley missed the foul shot. Halliburton rebounds. 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Indiana leading 111-105. Cavaliers trapping, trying to force a turnover. Now it's in Halliburton's hands over on the far side with half a minute to go. Halliburton against Mitchell. Hunter shows a trap. Halliburton gets rid of it. Far corner. Turner. Dagger. A three out of the corner, and all of a sudden, a switch has been thrown. This place is like a library.
Mark Boyle, Eddie Gill, Pacers radio last night. BT writes this: you don't hear from Miles hitting morons anymore, do you? Well, really one of the larger morons in history called yesterday. And here's what Keith said. You guys remember? Did you tape that yesterday from Keith?
I'd have to find it, but it's somewhere.
Keith wants to let Miles walk and wants the Pacers to draft and then insert Hunter Dickinson. Now, honestly, I laughed. I can't take a dip blank like that for real. I just can't. Cannot do it. But I did laugh. Hunter Dickinson. Hunter Dickinson, where's he going to be playing this year? With me at St. Luke's. He's going to be guarding Matt Howard. Good Lord. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Pacers on to back-to-back now. Eastern Conference Finals await the outcome of tonight. Certainly, Knicks on the road with a closeout chance in Boston against the Jason Tatumless Celtics. Kevin Bowen of the Morning Show joins us now. Hello, Kev. How are you?
Doing great, John. I think, speaking of Hunter Dickinson, I think Jeff Rickard fell for the April Fool's Hunter Dickinson joke earlier this year, thinking he was back for his 7th year of college. So not sure if that caller and Jeff were maybe on the same wavelength.
Well, I will say this. I'll give Keith a little bit of credit here. I think those that vote on Executive of the Year probably would have voted him in the top 12 like they didn't do Kevin Pritchard, but did do that fired guy. What was his name? McNair? What the hell's his name? From Sacramento that got fired, and he was in the top 12. I mean, what?
Yeah, Monty McNair, right?
What an absolute. So Keith, with decision-making like that, could probably get in the top 12 of Executive of the Year in the NBA, since clearly nobody pays an ounce of attention to it.
So maybe he was onto something right there, you know?
Yeah. Top 12. I mean, not in the top 12, and it's all because you don't do anything, right? Because you ran it back. You brought everybody back, I'm assuming. I mean, you did your work the year prior. You bring everybody back. You know, and Sacramento makes all these deals and jack up the team even more and fire the general manager, and he gets in the top 12. That's incredible.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that is a peer vote, right? So maybe all these peers are just so pissed that Kevin Pritchard fleeced them all that they don't want to give him any credit.
I just think that shows the level of jackassery that you could have running your organization, Kev. That's problematic right there.
Now, that's probably a very accurate way to put it.
All right. Let's get down to business here, and we'll get to the game last night and then move forward. You know how I feel about this group, one of my favorite of all time, and I think it's even more magnified at this moment and then moving into next year that this is your championship window that is open. And believe me, out west, you're going to have the usual suspects. But with Milwaukee, going to be in serious transition without question. Boston in serious transition. This is your window to do something. So I don't know if you're like me on this, and I really simplify the situation. I was talking to Alex Golden about his conversation with Steve Simon on the show yesterday, and I don't want to hear a damn thing about a luxury tax. I don't want to hear anything. I want you to make this team right now, certainly moving forward in the short term, hopefully in the longer term, but definitely in the short term, as good as it can be. I don't want to hear one damn excuse. Not one.
Yeah, the answer from Steve Simon maybe wasn't as, I don't know, maybe convincing as I thought it might be.
Well, he just didn't want to say anything at that moment. You could tell. I mean, he was just kind of, that's his way of saying something, but not. So you've heard that. We've all heard that before. Yeah.
I'm sure leverage-wise probably plays into it. If you commit to going to the luxury tax, Miles' agents might perk up a little bit more. But, yeah, I mean, I think, really when you lay out the Eastern Conference, I mean, you look at the conference as a whole. I mean, obviously I think New York isn't going anywhere. Detroit, assuming they take another step. But, outside of that, I mean, the Tatum Achilles situation, and obviously Cleveland, we'll see what tweaks they make. But the whole Tatum, Achilles situation, certainly impacts Boston at a huge, huge level. We'll see what happens with Giannis. That's not even factoring in Lillard. But we'll see what happens with Giannis. So, yeah, I mean, it is a much, much different-looking Eastern Conference, even if you just want to look at what's happened here in the last couple of weeks. And the Pacers, if you look at those groups, and we'll see, if it is Pacers-Knicks, we'll obviously see what happens. But if you just look at Cleveland's core, you just look at Detroit's core especially, the Pacers have easily had the most in, playoff success of any of those. And really Turner is the only question. Now, it's definitely a big question, but still that would be it. And, and Tony East or maybe somebody else can break this down more. I just what you would lose. I mean, I guess maybe you can't bring back Toppin or I don't know, Mathurin or Walker. I don't know exactly what you would lose, but when you look at right now what Miles has given you, it's hard to argue against it.
So why can't you just pay? Why can't you pay to keep everybody? Why can't you go on the luxury tax?
Well,
I mean, is that what you're saying? Because when you say they can't, that's the type of crap I don't want to hear. Honestly, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I mean, unless I'm missing something, from a ramification standpoint, I don't. This screams to me, out all the years we've had, and I don't know, maybe, the end of the Paul George, David West type runs might have been another time, but certainly in the last 10, 12 years, this is easily the most, when you say the Pacers can win a title, that is a legit statement. Right now, I'd be surprised if they didn't make the NBA Finals, which I certainly didn't say that last year after they won in the division or in the semifinal round. But I think that's the opportunity that you have here. And, this core, I mean, to me, there is a little bit of a window of okay, whatever you think Siakam probably, has left, whenever that ends or whenever you feel like you're not getting the return on investment, maybe then you would need to make your next pivot. But right now, there just doesn't seem to be any major tweaks. This team seemingly has answers on both ends of the floor. They do something that really no NBA team wants to do, I think, on either end of the floor, particularly defensively, and their willingness to pick up. So, yes, I didn't think the Stephen Simon answer was maybe as, we're jumping into the deep end. Maybe he just doesn't want to say that during the regular season or until a Miles contract is done.
Or until the end of the Eastern Conference, because we evaluate on the fly or reevaluate on the fly. So that I kind of understand that as well. So I do get it.
And
I just don't want any excuses.
One other thing, if we're talking about, and let's just play out, I'm just playing out a hypothetical, just play it out. Let's say we were talking about Neesmith, for example, like Turner, of, okay, here's this big contract extension he's due, and it's going to send you into the luxury tax. On paper, whether it's Mathurin, whether it's Walker, there are some other guys on the roster. They don't do what Neesmith does, let me be clear. But there are at least some other guys that, you could maybe talk yourself into absorbing some of that. There's nobody with Turner. I mean, Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman both tore their Achilles last year, and even Thomas Bryant's a free agent, and I don't know, Thomas Bryant's probably looking at, I would say, a decent payday, somewhere else here this offseason. So there's nobody waiting in the wings. There's no, young center to pass the torch to by any means. So even if you don't want to look at, Miles, which I think his play is very deserving, even if you want to be skeptical of that, there's no one on the roster that you would even look at and say, oh, yeah, but, they can just give that money or give a little bit less money to this guy and then, save some of that. There's nobody that you would even look at right now and say that about.
Hey, Kev, Keith called me yesterday and said Hunter Dickinson. That doesn't float your boat?
Yeah, I had to laugh when you said Hunter Dickinson will be guarding Matt Howard at St. Luke's.
Yeah.
I missed that call. Was that?
No, he was glorious. He was gloriously stupid. No, you have it right here. Here's what it was. You want to hear it? Here was Keith from yesterday, Kev.
If Miles walks, why not go after that center from Kansas? I think he'd be good with us.
No.
Yeah.
Seriously?
He was good at Michigan. Yeah. Because right now, I think he's a little bit more better than Miles. Let him walk.
What?
Grab Hunter.
Well, I don't know if I can ever take your call. Are you serious or are you drunk? What are you talking, Keith? What are we talking about here?
Okay,
Keith,
number one, he plays when he wants to.
Keith, I need to educate you on this. What are you talking about? When does he play when he wants to? Because he must want to about every single night.
I've never seen him get a game where he's had over 10 rebounds. That's every once in a while. I watch a box score every night. He don't rebound very good.
Keith, I don't think you know what the hell you're talking about. Can I educate you sometime? Do you mind? Because this opinion is awful.
Go for it.
This is an awful opinion. Awful.
Because I look at the box score every night.
Well, I know. That's evident. There's Keith right there, Kev.
Oh, man, that is tremendous. We had a call early in the series that said after Game 1 that the Pacers should bench all their starters for Game 2 and rest up for Game 3, which I said on air. I said it was the dumbest call we'll get all of 2025. And, boy, I don't know. Keith was trying to make a strong challenge. Honestly, when he first said the center from Kansas, I thought he might have gone Flory Badunga on me there.
I thought,
you know what?
I thought he was talking about Joel Embiid.
Was he going back to Wilt?
I will tell you this. All right. I want you to compare two things because I do, as you know, I will take ownership of stupidity. Okay? So I want you to judge Keith's phone call that you just heard from yesterday and me, in my opinion, that Halliburton missed the Game 2 free throw purposely. Which take is worse?
Oh, easily Keith. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I didn't think yours. To be politically correct, I think you've had better takes with the Halliburton missed free throw. You've done too many good things for me in my life.
I love that, though. That's so much more ballsy than making that son of a gun, man. I love it.
But yeah, the old Hunter Dickinson. I mean, that is. I was thinking about you last night because you can list a lot of plays from last night on Halliburton's second quarter, Miles's block on Mitchell, Nemhard's and one late. There's a lot of plays you can go to, and Miles has that dagger from the right wing or right whatever. It might have been probably in between the wing and the baseline, but I thought his offensive rebound up one.
It was.
When it eventually got kicked back out to Nemhard for the left wing three, I thought that was arguably, if you ranked them, that might have been the play of the game. Because, as much as I just thought Cleveland, no matter what, was going to run out of gas, if for some reason they would have turned that possession, and again, they're down one, if they grab the rebound and they go down and score, I don't know if Rick takes a timeout, but it just, for the first time in forever now, they have a lead with 3 minutes to go in the game, and that is a different life of energy. It's a different amount of pressure now for the Pacers. Again, I don't think Cleveland comes back and wins the series, but we probably are talking about a game tomorrow night, or very easily could be. And so for Miles to make that play, because we've seen Miles hit open three daggers before, but the offensive rebound and it turning into a three that stretched it back to four, I just thought that was a tremendous fitting play for the guy that's been here as long as he has.
And if you watch that play, Jared Allen didn't go at it hard, and Miles went at it hard. That was a huge difference right there. I mean, Jared Allen kind of just sat there, if memory serves, too. It's Kevin Bone with us. Hey, I do want to tie up a loose end we have here. We were talking about, this team, being in an open championship window. I think we also need to be reminded, too, that this is where we are right now and moving forward. This is a golden era for Pacer sports and entertainment overall, with the Pacers and the Fever, with what you got working. I mean, you got to take full advantage of this. And the way that you do that is, first, make sure you recognize it. And hopefully, I'm assuming they got smart dudes over there. They do.
Yeah, it is a great point. And, certainly, if you look at it, John, and, kind of mentioned this morning when we had Rick on, of we're not used to the Pacers for them to be in droughts very often as a franchise. Obviously you can, certainly without a title, that's a missing ingredient to a lot of people. But, the Pacers have been one of the best, most consistent, upper average, upper quartile, however you want to define it, teams. And this is different iterations. This is, certainly the mid-'90s, obviously the turn of the century, with the Paul George teams. There's a long stat of they don't draft in the lottery for X amount of years, having a top 10 pick. And, right before you hired Rick, and maybe even the first year of Rick, it was, 6 straight years without a playoff win, 9 straight years without a playoff series win. And, you really had no direction. I mean, whether you wanted to admit it or not, you had to move on from Brogdon, Warren, either Turner or Sabonis. Like that group wasn't, after the Oladipo injury, that group wasn't going to get it done. And to have admitted that wrong and Nate Bjorkgren into Carlisle, and then to have pivoted as quickly as they have, and now created a window, to your point, which isn't an aging window. Like sometimes teams occasionally do this, but the window, is 1 to 2 years max. Like this is a 2-year window already, and I see no reason why it shouldn't be at least a 5-year window. When you look at it without really making any grand moves. I mean, I don't, honestly, you hope Mather and Walker, continue to take steps forward. But, even if they don't, I still think you've got a whole lot there to have that. It's certainly that moment for this franchise, which, again, you probably have to go back to Paul George's prime the last time that you've had that. And I think when you look at the East, when, Peyton had a window here, it was still Brady and still some other quarterbacks. When Paul George and that group had a window, it's LeBron very much in his prime.
And Michael Jordan with the Pacers in the 90s, too.
Sure.
So, yeah.
That isn't there. I mean, we'll see. I mean, maybe Giannis gets moved somewhere and that changes it. But still, that clear and obvious team, especially for next year. Maybe Boston gets back there. But right now, there's just not that. And Cleveland and Detroit and even New York still have got to prove themselves.
They have 2 major pieces, contributors, that are on bargain basement discount deals right now, too, in both Nembhard and Nesmith. So, to me, I mean, you've already been savvy there. Why would you shortchange in other situations when you've already done that savvy work and you are where you are? I would find and take incredible issue, and it will be endless complaining. Alas, we are not there right now. Kevin Bowen of the morning shows on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Was that vintage Tyrese Halliburton? Especially, they were down 44-25, down 19 in the second quarter, and he brings them roaring back. Is that one of those signature moments, a signature game for him, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think road closeout games is kind of like a fourth quarter, 2 minutes to go, third down, red zone, et cetera, for a quarterback. Like we point to those games a little bit more. And I know it wasn't, end of game necessarily, but I mean, I don't want to say they were going to get run out of the gym, but I mean, it was teetering there, at least scoreboard wise. And honestly, I thought the biggest play was him getting fouled in the first quarter and just him having the wherewithal to attempt a shot. And then Okoro fouls him and he gets the foul line and finally just put some points on the board. Those are his first points of the game after he had battled foul trouble. And then, that second quarter with Strus on the bench, I mean, it is time for no sort of game 3 disappearing act. None of that. The guys guarded me all series on the bench. I had a quiet first quarter. We're down whatever it was, 15 or 20 on the road. Don't take for granted these opportunities and rest up for game 6. Try to assert yourself. Try to come back and give the offensive spark that team desperately needed after such a bad first quarter. And he did that. So, certainly. It's probably his closest kind of all-NBA game we've seen here in the postseason, when you look at the pure stat line from him. But, to do it, in the fashion that he did, certainly got you back in the game and exactly what you would want from your star on the road in a closeout game.
Hey, Kev, they scored 19 first-quarter points. That's 3 more than Cleveland scored Sunday night in the second quarter. That was the most dismal of all time right there. That's how close in proximity those offenses were, and the Pacers were able to dig out of that. That is significant measures taken and sustained for me there.
Yeah, and I didn't even think, some people were like, wow, Cleveland really hit you, hard in the first half, and that's, whatever. It's a huge punch. I'm like, at halftime, Cleveland was like 1 of 10 from 3. I thought, if you want to summarize the first half, and maybe more of the first quarter, the Pacers were an F, and the Cavs happened to be like a C+. And really, for the first half, maybe the Pacers, thanks to Tyrese, rose to like a D+ or a C-. Like, I didn't think Cleveland really played well. They just, Mitchell lived at the foul line, Mobley hit, maybe made a couple plays, and they were able to extend a few possessions. But it's not like you got to half and are like, oh, man, that dude has had – to me, it was a lot different, I guess, than Game 5 Bucks series. Like, Game 5 Bucks series is like, whoa, Gary Trent and A.J. Green and this new lineup, and the Bucks have maybe found something here. And obviously that was a back and forth, and I thought that was like a really well-played game. Like, I didn't think Cleveland – played well really at all. They were clearly tired as hell. The Pacers obviously contribute to that with their style on both ends of the floor. And eventually, I think the Pacers, got to that point where the scoreboard kind of indicated that, even when, Hunter has the 4-point play and Mitchell hits the corner 3. There were some desperation moments there. But, still, I just thought the Pacers were clearly the better team. It was really going to be a shame if they had to come home and play Game 6.
All right, I got to go quickly here, but I did want to ask you as well. Let's just say, for example, we look ahead, and that ends up being the Knicks once again, and that rivalry is revisited. We know how it went 7 games, and ESPN and Stephen A. Smith just clowned themselves going into that Game 7, if you remember, a year ago. But that was without Jalen Brunson, and certainly now without, I think, Miles and where he is and what he has done, his biggest challenge is going to be represented if the matchup is he and Karl Anthony Towns, because Karl Anthony Towns can do similar things, and it's not Isaiah Hartenstein from a year ago. And that is going to be as tough a matchup for him as I think he has seen in a while, if that ends up being the Eastern Conference Finals matchup.
Yeah, and I actually think, a sneaky matchup, too, will be Mitchell Robinson off the bench with a little bit of Thomas Bryant. For those that have watched the Celtics series, Robinson has been a huge difference maker. And I get that people just see the airball free throws and think he does little, but he's been a huge factor in that series. So I think the Pacers, as much as it pains me, and certainly the child in me never thought I'd ever say this, I do respect the hell out of how hard the Knicks play.
No, listen, we would love Brunson. If he didn't head bob or foul bait, you would love him, and he didn't play for the Knicks because he's a hard-ass dude.
You would love Hart, for how hard he plays. And
he whines too much, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but he still plays hard as hell.
He does.
And I just think what stands out to me with this series is at some point I think New York will crack from their bodies can't go like anymore, really.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be critical for the Pacers to jump on them early in the series. The fact that they only have one ball handler and Brunson, I think, is huge. You throw Nembhard on him, you throw Neesmith on him, you keep guys fresh on him, you pick them up full court. You might not feel it in Game 1 or Game 2, but the longer that series goes, you're going to feel it. Bridges and Anunoby are great players, but they don't handle it. Hart doesn't really handle it. So I think if you pick them up full court, you can really, really probably play to their biggest question mark or one of their biggest weaknesses. So I can't wait. Obviously, if you're a Pacer fan, you want, I think, Boston to win tonight. Hell, you maybe want Boston to win the rest of the way. But I think it sets up great for the Pacers, and I expect them to be in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and you had 4 guys off the bench for the Knicks. Robinson played 25 minutes, McBride 20 minutes, and then Achua and Payne 5 between them in Monday night's game number 4 against the Celtics. So, yeah, it's Tom Thibodeau, too, so he's going to run these guys raw as far as minutes are concerned with the starters. So, yeah, it's the advantage, certainly, that the Pacers take in that category of up and down the floor. A morning show, Kevin Bowens on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Kev, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate you. Hunter Dickinson, I'll write you down for a vote. That's who you want.
Matt Howard versus Hunter Dickinson. I'm ready. Let me know.
Yeah, brother. Good to hear from you.
See you, John.
Kev's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Kevin, Jeff, and James in the morning show, 7 until 10 a.m. here on The Fan. All right, other side, we got Jason Logan of Covers.com. Then we got JJ, and we got Spiro Ditas of TNT, 5 o'clock hour. Me and you as well at 239-1070. Stay there.
Average guy with exceptional hair.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Pacers trailing by 4. Nembhard at the top of the circle. 80 seconds left in the second quarter. Halliburton from the logo hit a 3.
Talk about a heat check. Goodness gracious, he's heating up here in this second quarter.
He's got 5 3-point field goals in this quarter. Cleveland's lead is all but evaporated.
Boyle and Gill, Pacers Radio, heard here on The Fan. Those are back-to-back games for Pacer players. It's a rarity in this world in which you see the heat check knocked down. Miles heat checked and knocked it down in game number 4. Halliburton heat checked and knocked it down in game number 5. That's how you know you're feeling good, everybody. Yeah, back-to-back games with a heat check going in. Normally, that's a heat check. Oh yeah, I didn't go in. Back-to-back games with heat check makes. Pacers await the winner. Knicks and Celtics, opportunity for the Knicks to close out Boston without Jason Tatum tonight in Boston. And then a closeout chance for the Timberwolves at home at the Target Center in Minneapolis versus Golden State this evening as well. JJ, Pacers TV, top of the hour. Spiro Ditas of TNT had the call last night of the Pacers closeout performance in Cleveland. 3 road wins versus the 64-win regular season Cavaliers. I believe, James, they lost all of 5 home games this season. I believe 2 of those were to the Pacers, and 3 of those came in the postseason. Is that true? That is a drunken stat.
That sounds right to me.
And if I'm making it up, then so damn be it. JJ, Spiro, 5 o'clock hour. Carb Day tickets to give away as well. We'll get you a check with Brendan King at the top of the hour. Also got a check with you. So did you guys see that Jimmy Johnson and Tom Brady will be bringing the field to green for the 109th edition of the Indy 500? And Colts fans, I got to take your temperature. That sounds weird. I got to check your pulse on the Tom Brady thing here. So, does that mean Bobby Portis is going to be asked to drive the pace car? I know Tom Brady's obviously has that connection relationship with Fox, but I'm just kind of curious. I mean, measure the temperature of you Colts fans on Tom Brady? Tom Brady. Does it matter? Now, you think Bobby Portis is going to be asked to drive the pace car?
Let's just get Bobby Portis, Jalen Brunson, and Kendrick Perkins in there. We'll be great.
Is John Green from the Brawl still alive back in 2004, the beer tosser? You want to get him to drive the pace car? Let's think of all the jack sticks that could drive the pace car that nobody around here likes. We'll revisit that in a second. On the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, I don't know if they do this or not, but I'm going to ask him. Do they reference our next guest as J-Lo? Now, that's already been taken. I'm just wondering. Jason Logan, senior betting analyst, Covers.com, been on the show before. A friend of the show from Canada is with us now. Are you referenced as J-Lo often?
On the weekends, definitely on the weekends. It's a J-Lo thing. Yeah. I like to party on the weekends.
You working a little junk in that trunk too, J-Lo? Are you? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, sure. I used to play college ball and then played the post, so I gotta
wait a minute.
I gotta swing the dumper around a little bit and clear some space. So yeah, I'm working with a little badonk.
J-Lo played college ball, so tell us more.
In Canada.
Oh my! So what's that? What's that like?
All on ice.
You have 3 dudes and a couple of sled dogs playing.
No. But I played college ball up here in Canada. It wasn't anything too crazy. Enjoyed that, and now I still play college ball still play basketball with a bunch of old guys on Thursday night. We still gotta run out there. And you were talking about heat checks. If I hit 2 shots in a row, it's heat checks.
I like that, man. That's the mentality.
Yeah, green light every single time down the floor.
Jason Logan knows this to be true. The next shot is always the one going in. Always.
You got to have the memory of a goldfish, right? You can't dwell on the last one.
No doubt about that. All right, so measure up the opportunity for the Knicks, according to your numbers, to close the deal in Boston later on tonight, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at. The odds right now are saying that the Celtics are going to come out and put up a fight here. They still have a fantastic team. I mean, we're still looking pretty good without Jason Tatum there. But this was at as high as 5.5. We're seeing it down to 4.5. So odds makers, leaning towards Boston here, but it is a gut punch with Jason Tatum out of the lineup, and just without a killer mentality, and that's what they've lacked in the series. They've had New York on the ropes repeatedly and just cannot put the foot on the throat to put them away, and the Knicks keep storming back. And to me, especially after Tatum going down, it really feels like the Knicks could be a team of destiny. I know the Pacers fans don't want to hear that right now, but the Knicks just seem to be clicking and playing fantastic basketball, and should they advance tonight or some other point in the series, I mean, it's going to set up an awesome matchup with Indiana in the conference championship.
Let me hear how you run the because here's the one thing that we have noticed, that Vegas completely blanked up the number, have they not, in the entirety of the Pacers-Cavaliers series?
Well, I think some of that, too, you have to reflect is action on the Cavaliers and any liability on the Cavaliers. So they're trying to kind of skew those numbers to offset any liability. So the Cavs being the number one seed in the East and taking action all year and looking fantastic, and they were a good team. So those odds are skewed a bit because there is action already pending on the Cavaliers to say win the East or win the NBA title. But yeah, I really was surprised towards the end, even with some of the injuries and incoherent and kind of inconsistent rotations for the Cavs, that we saw them be favored in every single game. And I think, Indiana's going to welcome that underdog role. You talked about Rick Carlisle, just accepting that, we're happy that no one's paying attention to us. We're happy that everyone's counting us out. It's, there's no distractions there. There's no expectations there to pull our attention away. We love playing up and past those expectations. So, Indiana really is welcoming that underdog role. And I believe they're going to be underdogs again, whoever they do play in the Eastern Conference Championship.
It's Jason Logan, senior betting analyst, covers.com. He's been on here before. You've enjoyed his time on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So what's that number going to look like? Let's just say, for example, the Knicks do advance. We get that Monday game number 1 in Madison Square Garden. Now, I know you're not going to be as silly as Keyshawn Johnson in the way he described, and the Pacers just went in there and won a Game 7 after ESPN puked all over itself in embarrassment cheering for the Knicks in the pregame show lead-up with Stephen A. Smith a year ago. And I know that there's no Jalen Brunson. That's a big deal. There was no Karl Anthony Towns. No big deal. Yeah. I can't remember if OG, and I know he played, but I know he was dinged up basically the entirety of the series anyway. Mm-hmm. What's this number going to look like if that is your matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals?
At least for game 1 in New York, I'd have to say you're going to see a surplus of Knicks action because they are the Knicks. I would say probably Knicks 3.5 to 4 as a favorite. I think that's where we'll see it, is around that 3.5, almost a 2-possession game.
Have we seen any resurgence in interest or belief in the Pacers over this playoff run at all? Have you seen anything that would suggest that is happening? Because you talked about, Knicks, they're the Knicks, and, betting fans of the Knicks or whatever. Have we seen any interest? Because it seems like most of the world, besides us right now, is being introduced to this Pacer team. Even though they were in the East Finals a year ago, it's almost like, oh, well, hell. I mean, even these analysts that get paid a lot of money to don't know jack squat about them. It seems like everybody's kind of being introduced. Is that the way that Vegas is looking at it right now through these betting odds?
Again, those odds are always kind of skewed by the money that's already come in, and there's blind money that comes in on the Knicks every year to win the championship, especially with the way that they've played basketball. To start the year, they cooled off a bit with injuries. They end a little strong, and then they come in and start playing some fantastic basketball. So the Knicks are always going to take money. But if we look at the odds to win the East right now, it's pretty close. I mean, we're looking at New York as a -105 favorite, and then Indiana coming back at +120. That's about a 45% implied probability of winning, and that's still with Boston on the board as a long shot right now down in that series. So by no means is Vegas discounting Indiana. I just think, with home court, which hasn't meant much, and the way that the Knicks are playing right now, like I said, it's going to be a pretty slim margin. We could, like I said, game 1 probably a 3.5-point spread to a 4-point spread.
All right, what are we looking like in the West right now? I mean, you've got a potential for an OKC closeout in Denver coming up next as well in one semifinal, and then Minnesota has the opportunity against Golden State, shorthanded as they have been later on tonight in Minneapolis. How's that looking?
I mean, in terms of the futures odds to win the West and get to the Western Conference Championship, I mean, it is Oklahoma and Minnesota. For me, I played a few props in these games. I do expect where was my? I gotta find what I was betting. A two-edged action on the go tonight. With Jimmy Butler pushing a little bit, I took it over on 3-pointers. The spread for this game tonight is an 11-point spread, so we have to think that Golden State is playing from behind, and no Steph Curry still. So there's a gap in that outside shooting, and Golden State's going to need their big players to hit big shots. So I was looking for Jimmy Butler to hit over 1.5 3-pointers, and it was paying plus 185. I thought it was a fantastic deal on that over 1.5. He's hit 2 threes in the first 3 games of the series. He was sick for game 4. We saw his numbers and his minutes dip. I think Butler comes back and is at least a little more active from outside, and that's where my money was for that game tonight.
Jason Logan, the senior betting analyst of Covers.com. Anything else we need to get to as well? Are you going to do odds on the Indy 500?
We do some racing articles. We have some racing experts there.
Okay.
That we do. They do the 500. I don't normally touch it. However, I am a big WNBA fan. And,
tell us.
I think the Indiana Fever are primed for a fantastic season. I took them earlier, just when they started adding all the free agents. When they added Bonner, I was on my way to Super Bowl in Louisiana, and I saw that they had signed DeWanna Bonner, and I had to get down my action before I got on the plane, because once I got to Louisiana, all my sportsbook accounts wouldn't work. And so I was able to bet them, get a good number at them before the line moved. But I look at them as just, they've built such a fantastic roster around that 3 of Clark and Boston and Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, you look at that trio there, they were scoring 60 points a game, just that trio in the final 15 games of the regular season last year. And then you add toughness in the backcourt with Cunningham, you add Bonner, you add Howard, 2 fantastic experienced front court players that also can push around the other team. And you got Lexi Hall coming off the bench. And then the biggest move that they made was that coach, getting outside, bringing Stephanie White. Really, really excited to see Indiana and what they can do this season. I'm very much all in on the Fever this year.
It should be noted, Jason Logan's favorite sport to bet on is indeed the WNBA.
Yeah. It's soft odds, and you can definitely take advantage of those.
Covers.com, you can find him there. It is senior betting analyst Jason Logan, 20-plus years of experience, and a former 5-man somewhere in Canada, collegiately, still playing today and taking that next shot and knowing that next shot is going in on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Jason, I appreciate you very much. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Jason Logan on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, listen, Canada produces a lot of good players. Team Canada's good. So it probably is not Jason Logan, 2 other dudes, and a couple of sled dogs on a team up there in college. You think he took that the right way or the wrong way?
He seemed like he got a laugh out of it.
Yeah. Hey, if not Bobby Portis to drive the pace car, how about Spike Lee? Can we get Spike Lee to drive the pace car? Tom Brady and Jimmy Johnson. Tom Brady's going to be wheeled around by Jimmy Johnson in the fastest seat in sports to bring the field to green. I do want to get your thoughts on that, too. But right now we concentrate on the Pacers moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll see if their matchup is the Knicks, if they close out the Celtics coming up in Game 5 later on tonight. Quick break, we'll come back. Carb Day tickets to give away as well. Brendan King, top of the hour, with an IMS update. Also on the way, and the Harrah's Hoosier Park Race of the Day. Don't go away. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Thank you for joining us. JJ, top of the hour, Pacers TV, and Spiro Ditas of TNT. Play-by-play last night is going to join us. Pacers moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Full-scale conversation about the now and the future with the Pacers. This, my friends, is what a championship window looks like. Grab the baton and run with it. It's pretty easy. That's my recommendation for the Pacers moving forward. Oh, was that that was All-American Rejects, wasn't it? Sorry about that. Hey, Carb Day passes right now. That's right over my head. Number 9 at 239-1070, even though James literally told me 25 seconds prior. Carb Day passes number 9 at 239-1070. You get that. We're all going to go out there together. You know, I had to actually not argue, but I had to set a dude straight a little bit earlier on Facebook, on the Fan Facebook page, because he said, man, this show, whatever happened to the bands like Aerosmith and Counting Crows at Carb Day? Well, for one, numbnuts, neither one have ever played Carb Day. And as I've always said, it's about the party. So what we got to do for this guy, and he seems like a nice enough guy, maybe I shouldn't reference him as, quote, numbnuts, but numbnuts, I got to get you out there and show you the best time you've ever had. That's just what I do. And if you think I'm joking, don't, because I'm completely serious. Doesn't matter who's out there. By the way, Brett Michaels, awesome dude, great show. I've never seen the All-American Rejects. Checking that out. But what that's going to do is that's going to start one of the greatest weekends we will ever have together. So I think his name was Thomas Bridges. I'll just call him out right here. Is that better than calling him Numbnuts? Numbnuts or Thomas Bridges? Either one.
I do both of them.
I like Thomas Bridges or Thomas Numbnuts Bridges. But Thomas, I'm ready to make sure you have the most profound of incredible times. And shoot you straight on Carb Day. Number 9 is going to go on us. If you're on hold, I'll get back to you on the other side, too. JJ is going to be here on the other side. Spiro Ditas, bottom of the hour. Do not go anywhere. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
with JMV.
It's called Sex Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries.
It's quite pungent. It stings the nostrils.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Nembhard spins into the lane. Cut off on the foul line by Mitchell. He retreats, giving the ball to Halliburton. Now back to Nembhard. Wade has him now. Cross court to Halliburton. He just hit a 3, and this time he hits another one.
Beautiful job. Pascal Siakam does a terrific job with the flare screen, freeing up Halliburton, and he starts to get hot here in the second quarter.
Mark Boyle, Eddie Gill, Tyrese Halliburton, 6 of 10 from distance, a part of a 31-point closeout Game 5 in Cleveland last night. Pacers await competition again. Back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals for the Blue and Gold. Knicks with an opportunity to close out in 5 against the Jason Tatumless Celtics tonight in Boston. Minnesota, a similar opportunity at home versus Golden State out west. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, we missed the broadcast. We do. We love Pacers TV. Part of that, Jeremiah Johnson is with us now. So where are we standing as far as what we witnessed last night? I mentioned this is usual for the Pacers, and I also believe that they play and they are really, to me, universally productive and successful playing a brand of basketball that I think they're 1-1 in the NBA at doing, and that is with pace, that is with team orientation, more than a singular star or having 2 stars. It is an amazing group that's producing amazing results, and something you simply put in the NBA don't see.
I just watched a Pascal Siakam video that he posted on social media, and he talked about this team. And I think the 3 words he said was to play with toughness, unselfishness, ball movement. And that's exactly what you see from the Pacers. You know, unselfishness and ball movement, those go hand in hand. But the way the Pacers play, it is 1-1, at least in the playoffs. I mean, how many of the other teams in some of the other series you're watching, the games are slower. It's just a different style. And for the Pacers, they're playing the way they did when they were successful in the regular season in the postseason. And that's pace. That's also with depth. And that depth allows them to be able to finish these games in the fourth quarter. It all fits together, and the coaching staff is really pushing all the right buttons. And I think your point was accurate. This is what they do. When they cut that deficit to, I believe, 4 at halftime, maybe 6, I felt really good about things because we've seen this before. And even though I was not in Cleveland, you just felt through the television that one team had all kinds of confidence and the other was just hanging on for dear life. And then we saw the Pacers take advantage in the second half. And it was a joy to watch all the moments. And think about 10 games into this playoff run, to have 8 wins and to have probably 5 or 6 games that you probably could say are sort of once in a lifetime type of games and comebacks and first half blowouts. I mean, things you'll remember forever. I can't wait to see what happens next.
So Jeremiah Johnson, the Pacers TV on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Do you think that we know that in sports in general, certainly professional sports, there are copycats out there that see something that's successful and try to do it? How difficult would it be to do what the Pacers do? Because I said this earlier, I think it would be incredibly difficult. You have to have great decision-making on personnel, the right personnel to play this style, the right coach to fit the personnel to fit this style. It is all an interesting and very delicate dynamic that the Pacers, I think, with this group have mastered as of right now.
It's a puzzle, and all the pieces have to fit. And if you take one away, the puzzle just does not look complete. And I'll even go back to 10 and 15. Remember you at Gainbridge Fieldhouse watching that team play the Charlotte Hornets. And I think the hardest part was you knew what they were capable of, and it just didn't look like the team that you sort of fell in love with and appreciated watching last year. Well, what was the reason? You take away 2 or 3 pieces, maybe specifically, let's say Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard. You take those pieces out of the puzzle, and it's just not the same team. And so big picture, this is a good opportunity to give props and a shout-out to the front office and to Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan and Ted Wu and all of the people in the scouting department that have somehow found all of the pieces to get them to work together so the puzzle fits. And probably to have a copycat team, you'd probably also have to pull Tyrese Halliburton away, because I do think the style of a point guard that he is he's almost one of one. I'm not going to say there are not other point guards that could do some of the things that Tyrese Halliburton does, but it's the entire picture. It's the way he plays, the unselfishness, the importance he feels to get his teammates involved and to never get tired. That's where it all started when they rebuilt this team and this roster. It started with Tyrese Halliburton, and then those other puzzle pieces fit into place.
We saw what happened in the Eastern Conference semifinals a year ago. It goes 7 games, and the whole ESPN Stephen A. Smith embarrassment notwithstanding. The Pacers ran roughshod over the Knicks in that Game 7, moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they got straight-setted by the Celtics. But certainly the dynamic is different really on both sides of the basketball. A year of growth with the same group for the Pacers, certainly the same style, but some significant changes with the Knicks. Now, one is not a change. Tom Thibodeau still basically plays, 7 dudes. If you want to count, they played 9 the other night in game number 4 on Monday night against Boston. But, they had 2 dudes that played like 5 minutes combined right there in Achua and Payne. So you still have a short bench, but you do now have Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges. How does that dynamic change? We know Brunson, now healthy, is different, and he is a dog, especially at the end of games. But Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns, how's that change the dynamic with this Pacer team in mind if that's their competition in the finals?
Yeah, and then, Dante DiVincenzo, someone that provided a good spark for the Knicks, not available. I will be and Hartenstein as well. I mean, he caused the Pacers problems. So it's the 2 players you mentioned, the 2 players you take away. What's the difference? You probably would say at a surface level they're better with the changes, but they're a little bit different. They're maybe not as good at rebounding, so that kind of helps the Pacers a little bit. That's always my concern against a team that is excellent at rebounding, and a guy like Hartenstein really hurt the Pacers in that area. They're better offensively. Well, the Pacers are also better defensively, even though a lot of their players are the same. So it's fascinating to watch. It's a little bit like the Bucks in that you played them so many times over a 2-year span. Well, now you're going to have a lot of matchups against the Knicks, with the Pacers having a lot of the same players, but the Knicks having some different players. The biggest difference that I sort of feel is that the Pacers felt like when they beat the Knicks a year ago, that was the main accomplishment. I mean, you kind of skipped a step in the rebuilding process, and you were so ecstatic to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Not being in Cleveland, I don't know, I know they were pretty pumped up, but I just get this feeling that they are not satisfied with just getting now to the conference finals. They have bigger goals. They're saying things like, we want to win a championship, and they're not hesitating. They're not blinking. Like, that is a real goal right now. And so the Knicks are just the next team in their way, and they'll use some of the experiences they gained. But I'll be interested to see what happens. Again, we're probably getting a little ahead of ourselves. They're just up 3-1. I kind of expect them at some point to put the Celtics away. But if that's the series we do get, it'll be great theater. It'll be great television. I can't wait to see what happens.
He's JJ with us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So give me the most signature of moments in the 5-game series in which the Pacers won 3 in Cleveland in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Was it game 1 when they were dominant from start to finish, with the exception of maybe 5 minutes in the third quarter? Was it the Halliburton heroics in game number 2 at the end? Was it the incredible 42-point offensive barrage in the second quarter of game number 5, or check that, game number 4 on Sunday night? Or was it, what they did to dig out of a 19-point hole and what we saw with, again, Halliburton heroics last night in Cleveland? What was the most signature of those moments?
I'll probably go with game 2 and game 4 because those are probably the ones that I would say, 10 years from now, we could be sitting around at, some establishment and say, do you remember where you were when that happened? And to me, game 2, when Tyrese Halliburton misses the free throw, gets the rebound, steps back, and wins the game, I'll never forget that emotion and that sort of experience watching. And then the other one that I won't soon forget is that first half of game 4. To have a 41-point halftime lead. Again, I was just on a podcast which will be released shortly with Pat Boylan and Chris Denary. My dad was a math teacher, so I should be able to calculate things pretty quickly. And as I looked up at the scoreboard at halftime, I had to double check in my head that it was a 41-point advantage and not a 31-point advantage, because 41 just doesn't sound right. It doesn't even sound possible if you were playing a game against the worst team in the league, let alone the team that was number one in the Eastern Conference with, most of their guys playing. So I would say probably those are the two most memorable, most iconic, but how blessed are we to have such a long list already 2 series into this playoff run.
It is amazing to me that they won in 5 games against a team that won 64 regular season games in Cleveland. And one of the things I look at is I go back to Friday night and the massive disappointment that was game number 3. They had a 13-point second quarter. It was absolutely atrocious. And then you look back at that game on Friday night, JJ, and that was the Cavaliers winning 64 games right there. I mean, you had, a massive night from Donovan Mitchell. You had Mobley and Allen doing Mobley and Allen things. You had Strus knocking down shots, and Garland not so much, but still got in double figures. That's who Cleveland was the entirety of the season. I thought we witnessed that on that Friday night. It's just weird how that is thrown in there with all these other accolades we're handing out of this 5-game series win.
A little weird, but it kind of fits in and it makes sense a little bit. And it did not surprise me the Pacers bounced back from that. They've been so good really for 2 or 3 months now in bouncing back from a loss, getting a win the game after a loss, specifically winning when you're defeated rather soundly. And I suppose as I left on Friday, as disappointing as it was, and you certainly had some concern and maybe even a little bit of fear for Cleveland and what they were capable of, it was better to me to lose by 20 than to lose by 2, because then in that day off on Saturday, the coaches, the video staff, they can have everyone's attention and they can point out some things that need to change, and there can be no questioning that, no second guessing. You don't say, oh, well, everything was fine. You just lost on a fluke play. You were soundly defeated on Friday, so it allowed you to get a complete amount of focus and to come back and to play in bounce-back mode, to play with that edge that you needed. And I guess I was impressed that they were able to then have that game on Sunday. And even though they got off to a little bit of a sluggish start on Tuesday, to quickly gain control, I thought, in the second quarter. And so that was a good sign for this team to come back from a win and then put together another impressive win. And you could have let up. You could have, in the back of your mind, said, oh, it's okay. You've always got Game 6 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse to finish this series off. It'll be okay if you lose. They didn't want that. They didn't want to risk that. They wanted to win in Cleveland. They wanted to take care of business and punch their ticket to the conference finals, and they did it once again.
JJ, is it tough to understand just how stupid some people are and really not knowing anything about the Pacers, especially those that cover the NBA basically on a daily, if not hourly basis, and what they don't know about the Pacers? It's almost like that last night unveiled something altogether new and fresh for so many out there that honestly have gigs that probably should know better than what they do. That's kind of what it felt like for me last night and this morning getting up to all the news.
I'll be interested to see in the next 5 or 6 days when the Pacers are not playing. And again, we'll see what happens with that Boston-New York series. Are they still playing? But you're having a little bit of a mix of people giving the Pacers their props, and then you have still that segment of analysts, and maybe a lot of them are East Coast based, that are saying, well, look what happened. The Cavs are out, so the Knicks are finally going to go back to the NBA final, or they're going to go to the NBA finals, right? I mean, they think they've already gotten things under control, and that will continue to fuel the Pacers. It doesn't surprise me. If you're in this market, you know that you're sort of always overlooked and underappreciated, and it's always a little bit of fuel to a team from Indiana, and the Pacers have used that as a rallying cry for a number of years, and it goes back to the Reggie Miller days. It's why the Bucks series was so unusual to have so many people picking the Pacers to win, and that was even, before the Damian Lillard injury. So to prove everyone wrong against the Cavs, and then to already have people just automatically stamping the Knicks into the NBA Finals is not surprising, but you are starting to see some people, man, the Pacers might actually be pretty good. And it is funny to see some of those people finally come to that realization.
You think the Celtics push the Knicks past game number 5 tonight without Jason Tatum?
As long as they can get over the emotional hangover that might be there, because they're a team that, starts this season with one goal, and that's to win a championship. It's not just to get to the conference finals. And so, not being in Boston, not knowing how they're reacting, I do feel like they've got enough winners and championship type of players that they have it in them to dig down deep and to force this back to New York. I don't know if they have enough to win 3 in a row. And again, if they think without Tatum it's going to be that much more difficult to win a championship, can they get that edge to get this one at a time that they need to get out of this series? I'm not sure about that. I tend to think that you got to give the champions their due and their credit, and a guy like Jaylen Brown has more of a responsibility that maybe at times he sort of craved. So I kind of, think Boston has a decent chance tonight, but we'll see what happens. They played well in games 1 and 2 and then faltered down the stretch. It could go that direction again tonight.
All right. Are you up on your history of Pacers and Racers?
Well, I was told today it's either the third time that they'll be playing on the actual race day, and the other 2 did not go so well. I kind of remember a lot of the ones on Saturday. I like the Saturday, Monday personally a little bit better, although I do remember the storms in 2002, and actually, is it 2002?
I thought it was it not 04 during that? I could be wrong about that too.
So I guess to answer your question, I'm not 100% clear on all of the memories, although a lot of them will come back to me if I have a little more time to do some research. But all I know is I like talking Racers and Pacers on Memorial Day weekend, and I'm thrilled that we'll be doing it again here in 2025.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. So Buddy Rice was the winner of the 500. So that was 2007 then, was it? Because that was Buddy Rice winning the 500 when everybody was told to get the hell out of Dodge, I believe, right?
I think that was I don't think the Pacers were in any conference finals, though.
I guess you're right. You might be right about that. I thought it was Buddy Rice, but I could be wrong. So, yeah, evidently we both need to do and get up on our Pacers and Racers history, I
We've
guess.
We've got some time to do some research.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But no, it always makes it certainly a great time. I just think in general, when the Pacers are in the postseason, whether, we're going to get it on the Sunday, as we will coming up a week from Sunday, or if they're just playing when everything's going on at the track, it just makes it fantastic. And certainly we've had enough of those moments. And honestly, JJ, I think you got a lot more of those moments forthcoming too, because this thing has, as long as you continue to do it right, longevity, I think, with a championship window that is legit. Because in the past, there's been a LeBron James in the way, there's been a Michael Jordan in the way. And you look at the landscape, especially in the East with the transitions, Milwaukee and Boston they're going to be going through right now. Yeah, you can't tell me that this is not a wide-open championship window that the Pacers absolutely have to take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's fun to think back or think ahead to what could be possible, but nothing is guaranteed. So you have this opportunity in front of you, and I heard Rick Carlisle say last night that it's wide open. It is wide open. I mean, the Thunder out west, you could probably say they are the team at the top that maybe is considered the favorite, but with what we've seen in this NBA playoffs, anything is possible. And all I know is the Pacers have won 8 out of 10 games, and they've done so in exciting fashion. And so you have an opportunity right now. You have a bright future, but you might just take advantage of the present, see what happens.
All right, you doing anything for the Eastern Conference Finals at all?
Well, they just clinched their spot yesterday, so don't have anything necessarily locked in, but it's why I always appreciate coming on with you once a week, but I even appreciate it more now when I don't have as many other gigs or opportunities. So nothing really on the plate, but I do enjoy talking about it, watching the games, and, of course, when I'm at the games, walking around the concourse, talking with all of our fans that are just enjoying this as well. So I'll keep you updated, but not a lot right now necessarily.
You can't wait, too, for what is the inevitable, if it's the Knicks, the Eastern Conference Finals cheerleading show, pregame-wise, right? With Stephen A. Smith and ESPN. Are you excited about that?
Well, think about it, though. It's a TNT broadcast.
Oh, it is a TNT broadcast. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
So
it is a TNT broadcast.
You won't have to deal with that like you did.
Is it all TNT the entire series, or they switch back and forth?
Well, they switch every other year. So this entire series
you're right.
be TNT.
Yeah.
So and it'll be the final TNT game broadcast in history, or at least until the next contract.
So they'll all be here. for the games, just like there'll be a Madison Square Garden. Well, that's a plus. But, I mean, you're still going to get the cheerleading effect going on, certainly with ESPN and Stephen A. Smith. We're just not going to have to get it as a precursor to the game itself as we got in Game 7 a year ago.
Yeah, you'll get it on the pregame show for the Western Conference Finals.
Yes.
You'll get Stephen A. Smith talking about the Knicks, and then you'll get it on the morning programming if you tune into that. But I'd like to think that the TNT shows should be entertaining and maybe a little more neutral. So we'll see what happens. I know that Charles and Kenny and Shaq and Ernie, they've done a pretty good job over the years of kind of giving the Pacers their credit. So, and you should have Reggie Miller in attendance for all of them. I mean, to me, it's all setting up perfectly for what could be a really fun Pacers-Knicks. But again, we'll see what happens tonight. We'll see if Boston extends that series.
You think it's better for the Pacers if it's extended or if you just know and you start to prepare for what's next here?
I think you go ahead and make them work for it. So I say extend it, and then whatever happens at that point, Game 6 or Game 7, you're fine with. But go ahead and make them work just a little bit harder. If we do know this, though, if the Celtics win tonight, that series will not start until Wednesday. So you could have a little concern about too much rest, but then think about what the Pacers have done this season when they've had a lot of rest. The in-season tournament break or the Emirates NBA Cup break, the All-Star break, and then even the week before the playoffs started. All of those first games after a long break, they fared well. So credit the coaching staff for getting them ready. If they don't play until next Wednesday, I have a feeling they'll be rested and charged and ready to go.
It's Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Always a pleasure, man, and we'll check in, I'm sure, coming up next week, no matter what the situation might be.
Anytime you need me, I'm pretty much available. So if you need to increase the frequency, you know where to find me.
You got it, buddy. Thanks, JJ.
All right.
Jeremiah Johnson, Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. On the call last night, Game 5 of the win for the Pacers. Spiro Dedes of TNT is going to join us coming up next, too. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
And the beat goes on. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, for those of you asking, Roadshow Twin Peaks Greenwood coming up on Friday. Roadshows all over the place. Coming up next week, I'm actually going to be with Pennzoil and Scott McLaughlin coming up on Monday. I'll give you what's going on there, too. And I know the Live Tour's got a special event at Chatham Hills on Wednesday. We have a tavern tour stop next Thursday with Heaven Hill Distillery and Brett Halverson. Main Street and Speedway, that is Dawson's on Main for the tavern tour stop. Carb Day, Pagoda Plaza per usual, and then they're turning me loose in the Coke Lot in the Bronze Fun Time Camper RV for the weekend where... yeah, I think you know what happens. And then, of course, the 109th running of the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500. You will find us in Pagoda Plaza beginning at 6 a.m. Myself and Tony Katz and a cast of thousands getting you prepared for the Indianapolis 500. That is a week from Sunday. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, you are going to have Pacers and Racers a week from Sunday. You have the Indy 500, and then you're going to have later on that evening on TNT, you're going to have the Pacers at home versus either the Knicks or the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. And joining us, he was on the call last night, the TNT broadcast of the Pacers closing out the Cavaliers in 5 games in Cleveland. Spiro Ditas joins us now. Spiro, good afternoon. How are you?
John, good to hear your voice again. How you doing?
The impression on this Pacer team, how legit do you believe them to be? You've seen them call their game so much after what you witnessed, especially in those semifinals on the road in Cleveland, for example. What's your thought on their legitimacy now moving forward?
I think anyone who had questions about this team's legitimacy as a NBA title contender right now, I think for anyone who's watched them these first 2 rounds, I don't know how there's any doubt. And especially now the way the landscape has changed, John, in the East with this Jason Tatum devastating injury. Obviously, the Celtics are up against it right now, 3-1. Man, if I'm Rick Carlisle and if I'm anyone in that Indiana Pacers locker room, our path to obviously getting to the NBA Finals looks a little bit different than it did maybe a week ago, 10 days ago. And with the supreme confidence that they're playing with based on what they just did against Cleveland, the top seed, my goodness. Boy, it's good to be a Pacers fan right now. They're sitting pretty.
Spiro Ditas of TNT's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline on the game call with Greg Anthony last night. Was there ever a moment, even when they got down 19 early in the second quarter, and what do they have? I think 16 first quarter points, 19 first quarter points, I think it was last night. Was there ever a moment where you thought, well, maybe this wasn't going to be their night considering the back against the wall circumstances of the Cavaliers?
Yeah, I think it was that 8-minute mark, second quarter. You know, you look up, it's 44-25. You're down 19. There's certain games, there's certain nights in an NBA season, in a 7-game series, where you just, sometimes the emotional tidal wave takes a game a certain way, and it's just not your night. But every time this Pacers team has been in that moment, you think to game 2, game didn't start well. Tyrese Halliburton, a little bit of a rough start in that game. I think he got into early foul trouble, had to sit early. Every time Indiana has been in those moments, it seems like in this postseason, they've answered the bell. And that, to me, is based on a couple of things. One, obviously, they're really talented. They've got as good a coach and a good as coaching staff as there is right now in the NBA. I think Rick continues to be one of the most underrated coaches of this generation. I think that looms large. But there's just something about the spirit of this team. And I think based on the run that they made last year to the conference finals, I just think we can't overstate what something like that does for the confidence of a group, to where even if you're down 19 in that kind of a road environment, and that was a really loud building in Cleveland, the game 2, probably the loudest building I've ever been in calling NBA now for about 20 years. And man, there's just something hardened. There's something seasoned about this Indiana team, John, that they never panic, and they slowly chip away, man. They're just so deep, and they're so interchangeable with the players that they have at Rick's disposal. It's just really impressive to watch.
Spiro, are they one of one in how they go about being productive, being successful, and winning games with the personnel usage, with the pace of play and all that? Is anybody else close to being what they do and how they attack productivity, organizationally speaking?
No, I think they are one of one. I think, based on this 5-out kind of spread offense that they play, I tell you, the other interesting thing about them is, and look, we all agree that Tyrese Halliburton is a burgeoning superstar in this league, if he's not there already, based on what he's done, based on how he's played in the big moments. But there's this myth that if you don't have the best player or players, top two players in a 7-game series, usually you're not going to win. But with Indiana, they just, it's the sum of their parts. They're so deep at every position. And you start to look at what the matchups will look like against the Knicks. And look, you can make an argument that, the Knicks may have the two best players in the series. Jalen Brunson, again, is playing out of his mind. Karl Anthony Towns has been an all-star multiple years in this league. He's one of the best big men that we have in the NBA. But Indiana is one of the few teams that has multiple defensive wings that they can throw at Jalen Brunson. And, if we've seen Brunson struggle, it's against wing defenders that are really physical. And, you look at Aaron Nesmith, the player that he's become. You look at Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mathurin. I know last night was a little bit of a struggle, was getting booed every time he touched the ball. Rick Carlisle just has multiple guys that he can throw it at Jalen Brunson. And so I think Indiana poses a really unique matchup. But to answer your question, they're as unique a team as there is. They can all pass. They can all shoot. They can all handle. There's not many weaknesses with this team.
Spiro Ditas of TNT is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You've called so many of those games, as I referenced a moment ago, of the Pacers. They played teams in the past, even in this series, that are dinged up. And some of these things happen on the fly. And I brought this up before. Then Patrick Beverley, whom everybody around here loves to hate, the former Bucks player, had a podcast that said this Pacer team is the most physical in the NBA. And it wasn't in the form of, 1994 Knicks physicality or Bad Boys Pistons late 80s physicality. It was the pace of play combined with the depth that wears others, especially those that don't go deep into a bench, down to the nub. And then sometimes you end up, getting injured because of that situation. Are they among the most physical just with that style of play in mind of the NBA?
I think they are. I think, and here's the other thing with Indiana. They're physical, yes. They have one of the great fast break teams that we have right now in the NBA. But the other impressive thing, John, watching this team the last 2 rounds of the postseason and the last couple of years, they can win multiple ways. And that's, I think, another part of the uniqueness of this team. Last night, Cleveland basically took away Indiana's fast break. They had very few transition opportunities in that game. And it was part of the reason why I think they fell in that 19-point hole. But they just figure out a way how the game is going and how can we change night to night, game to game. What do we have to do? How do we have to play tonight the way Cleveland is defending us, the way Cleveland's playing us? And they just seem to figure it out. And again, I think that goes back to coaching. The NBA, I think more than any other pro sport, the difference between the regular season and the postseason is so stark. And I think a lot of times these 7-game series, when you talk about the adjustments, the chess match, really comes down to coaching. And I think having Rick Carlisle pushing the buttons for this team is such a distinct advantage. I love Kenny Atkinson. He obviously was recognized this year, deservedly so, Coach of the Year. He deserved it for what he did in the regular season. But I thought Rick just had a phenomenal season. I'm not going to say he outcoached Kenny, but having Rick as the head coach, I just think is something that we can't overstate. And it just they're malleable with what they can do. They can play multiple styles, and there are not a lot of teams that can do that, to be honest.
So Spiro Ditas of TNT. TNT, of course, the Eastern Conference Finals have you coming up, and maybe it's the Knicks if they can close out the Celtics coming up later on tonight in game number 5. And certainly it'll be much different. We saw what took place in the Eastern Conference semifinals against a banged-up Knicks team a year ago with the Pacers winning in 7, and that devastating win that they had against the Knicks in the decisive game number 7. But this Knicks team is absolutely different from a year ago. Now, the numbers aren't. They still don't play a lot of bodies with a lot of time off the bench. But Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges is a part of it, and certainly a healthy dog at the end of game situations in Jalen Brunson. If that's the matchup, Spiro, how do you size it up, in your opinion?
Well, it's going to be fun. I mean, look, I grew up in the 80s and 90s with Knicks Pacers every year, it seemed like, in the postseason. So just to have that kind of as the backdrop, the rich history, Reggie and Ewing and Rick Smiths and all those great players of that era. Just rekindling those memories, I think, is going to be fun for a lot of people in Indianapolis and New York City. The scene in that building, we were there for Game 4, just incredible, off the charts. I mean, the love affair that the city has with the team, and obviously we've been watching what the scene has been like at Madison Square Garden. So that, I think, just to start, will be incredible. And I think the teams match up really interestingly. Again, I think Brunson and Towns are a matchup issue, obviously, for a lot of teams. Brunson is so unique. You look at him, John. He's not the fastest guy. Can't jump very high, but he's so fundamentally sound. He's so masterful and brilliant with his footwork that he tests any defensive player who tries to stay in front of him. And it all starts with that. But again, Rick, I think, is in a unique position that he has multiple players that he can put on Jalen Brunson. Obviously, they've got the bigs that can handle Cat. So, if you're asking me right now, I mean, if I'm Indiana, I think it's going to be an extended series. I think, probably 6-7, but I'm not picking against the Pacers after what I just saw.
Spiro, in closing, too, I happen to think that this is an incredible window of opportunity, not just this year, but you look at what is going to be a transitional landscape, for example, in the East in Milwaukee. That's inevitable, even with the Lillard injury, the Tatum injury in Boston as well. You don't know what's going on with the ownership there. This would seem like that this is the time, not just this year, but certainly going into next year, for the Pacers to take full advantage of these opportunities in the Eastern Conference, because there's no LeBron here. There's no Jordan, as the Pacers have had to deal with in those situations in the past. And it seems like a golden opportunity to me. You as well?
Oh, I think you can make an argument that the Tatum injury affects Indiana, maybe obviously putting the Celtics aside, affects Indiana, the Knicks, maybe more than any two other teams in the Eastern Conference. Based on what these two teams have built, obviously Detroit is an ascending team in the East. Orlando, when they're healthy, they've got some horses down there and they're putting something together. But again, if you're the Indiana Pacers right now and you're looking at Boston, obviously Tatum probably is going to miss most, if not all, of next year. It's basically now the Knicks and the Pacers, and you've got a window now to go for it this year and next year as well. Who knows what Milwaukee's going to look like? Does Cleveland run it back with the same group after a second straight disappointing second round exit? This is you're right. I mean, this is a window now with the Tatum injury. I mean, it was such a massive setback for that franchise, and it opens the door now for Indiana and New York and some of these other teams in the East. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. It's Spiro Ditas of TNT on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Always a pleasure. Thanks for hopping on here, especially after doing the game last night. And I'm sure we'll track you down as we get to the end of the season here and certainly get to the NFL season too. Thanks for always being on here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Always a pleasure. Have a great summer and enjoy these next couple of weeks.
You do too. Yeah, Spiro Ditas of TNT on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We shall take a break. We'll come back for a final time coming up on the other side. Anything I need to clarify? Tom Brady, the fastest seat in sports. Get on that. Until 6 o'clock, you have practice going on at IMS, and we are just about set to embark upon an incredibly busy week. I'll explain. Seriously, we are going to have an absolute blast. I guarantee you, unless you are the biggest turd in a punch bowl of all time, I will guarantee you a blast on race weekend. Explanation on the way. Don't go anywhere. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. Did I cut? No, you weren't going to play anything anyway, were you? Kevin Stafford's the winner, the winning horse. Was it Peter Dalt? Well, they were saying Peter Falk from Colombo. That's not it. Peter Dalt. $12.20 on a $2 bet. The $2 exacta was $1.29. The 50-cent trifecta paid out at $213.55. Your Harris Hoosier Park racing of the day. They have standardbred horse racing going on. Are you ready? Coming up until November. Great place to go. Hey, shout out to all my friends at Harris Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson and Kevin Stafford. 50 in betting, 50 in dining at Harris Hoosier Park. It is the Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. By the way, Gary Mack did chime in on Facebook. JMV, the 04 500. The Tornado Race, that was Pacers and Racers, in which Buddy Rice won after 180 laps in some of the most ridiculous and frightening weather situations in and around the Speedway on the south side of downtown Indianapolis, around 65 and 465, that you will ever see. 239-1070. Mike is in New Pal up here. Hello, Mike. How are you?
John, I'm good. How are you doing, buddy?
Great to hear from you, my brother. What you got?
Hey, I tell you what, Donna and I drove home from the track when I was working on track safety team, and we lived at Edgewood and Franklin, and that was hell on wheels trying to get home.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible. But here's my point. The way the Pacers are going to make it to the finals, their bench is going to come through. Their bench is deeper than anybody else, and we also, as Pacer fans, need to pull for the T-Wolves to come out of the West, because that will give us home court advantage in the finals.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it is very true right there. But listen, I'm glad that everybody's excited about the Pacers, because there's certainly reason. This is their championship window here.
Yeah, and I agree with what you and Spiro said. This is going to continue for a couple years.
Yeah, the opportunity's there.
Yes, sir. Spend that money, and boom, baby, let's go. And there was definitely the sports, you know what, last night.
Yes, there was. I was hanging my laundry on it last night.
I mean, if you look at the Cavs at home, they're 0-5 against the Pacers, and we're 8-2. Let's keep foot on the throttle. Keep it mowing. Let's go.
You got that? All right, Mike and New Pal.
This weekend.
You got it. I'll talk with you this weekend on the JMV Takeover. That's Mike and New Pal. Mike and Donna in New Pal. And Philip's on line 2. Philip, go ahead. How are you? Hello, Philip.
Hello. My friends call me Phil Billy, JMV.
Do
How
they?
you doing?
I'm great, Phil Billy. What's up, buddy?
Okay, look, I got one non-sports question.
Okay, I can't wait. Load it up and go.
Okay. Would you play, when you jam and you throw your little parties, could you play Cry Baby by John Mellencamp?
If you want me to.
I think you went by Cougar then, but
that is the all-request Saturday night. So yes, buddy, we can do that,
okay,
Philip.
I got three-part question. I know you're a busy man.
Okay.
Do the Pacers, from an organization from top to bottom, want hobbled Boston Celtics to play them, or they want the best of the Knicks? Do you want one question at a time?
No, yeah, I don't think they care at all who they play. We'll start right there. Phil Billy, what's next? Give me number 2.
Okay, this is the Indianapolis Colts. Who do you think is going to win the QB competition? Personally.
Anthony Richardson.
Me too. Okay, 3, my Cincinnati Reds.
Yes.
Is it a fluke, or are they really as good as they look? They're only 3.5, maybe 4 out.
Well, I think watching them against the White Sox last night, I think they are who we think they are. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I can't believe they won their 13th game.
They're 20 and 20. They're 3 games under 500 and 5 games back right now. So
I know.
Yeah.
I thought it was 3.5, 4.
Yeah.
Okay,
they lost 5-1 to the White
rocking.
Sox. Thank you, Phil Billy. I appreciate it. I like Phil Billy. He needs to call again. Jay's up next. Jay, go ahead.
Hey, John.
Hello, Jay.
I was wondering, you know that guy who called about Hunter Dickinson to be drafted?
I do recollect Keith, yes.
I think Hunter Smith is a better athlete, the former Colts punter and Redskins punter.
I think that's a
than
good
Hunter
call.
Dickinson.
I think that's a good call.
Also, there's a guy who played center at St. John's.
Bill Winnington.
I think he's a senior.
No.
No. It was a guy from the current team, and I think he'd make a really good backup center here.
Jay or the North Side? Jay, thank you. Hey, Billy, give me 10 seconds of your best material, man. I'm up against it.
Tom Brady is going to wave the green flag. If he's going to be in the parade also, I wouldn't want to be in the marching band from Wapalahani High School behind the float that he's on, because there's going to be nothing but booze up and down Meridian Street. Whoever signed off on this idea, it is the definition of a turd in the punch bowl.
I wondered how you're going to feel about that. Hey, Billy, by the way, I'll see you Twin Peaks on Friday in Greenwood, right?
I'll be there.
Spiro Ditas, Jeremiah Johnson, Jason Logan, and Kevin Bowen. Podcast 1075thefan.com. Will it be the Knicks after tonight's Game 5? Either way, we'll talk it up tomorrow. James, great job out of you. Twin Peaks on Friday in Greenwood, back in studio tomorrow. You guys have been fantastic. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.